Welcome to Art is Trauma. This week we did some plays by Samuel Beckett, Endgame and Krapp's Last Tape. So, Chris, how'd you feel about it?
Oh, I mean, it was one of those. The Beckett this week was one of the first times we've read something that I actually felt bad that I didn't already know these. I watched, I read Endgame in undergrad and I wasn't hip enough, you
Mhm.
know, it kind of bounced off me. But this time, so much of both of these plays not only resonated, but are similar to my own interests. So I very much enjoyed these two plays. And they were also devastating. God.
Yeah, that was a okay, I have to make an admission. One thing is I'm on a diet right now, so my biochemistry is upset with me. And that
Okay.
makes functioning sometimes a little hard. So Endgame, I didn't, I wasn't fully on the rhythm for that when I first read it, when I was reading it for this podcast, and when I was like looking back at it today, I was just like, Jesus Christ, I can't believe I missed out on this. It's like
Yeah,
there's,
well, one of the things that's hard about Endgame is that there's no big other telling you what it means. So the first time when you have these statements that are deeply existential, they kind of, I don't know. It's like I didn't let them emotionally resonate because I wasn't sure if I was reading it or hearing it right. And then the second time I was like, oh my God, it's life and death. Like here I
yeah,
am,
it's just and for our dear viewers,
Mhm.
um, I don't know. How do you summarize this? You just say, yeah, it's you got Ham who's just sitting in the it's two guys in a room and one of
Mhm.
the guy's parents sitting in like trash cans and occasionally peeking out of them.
Mhm.
I'm sorry, but like when I think of that, I can't help but think about like Sesame Street, um, which is
There's
unfortunate.
probably, I'm sure there's a rendition where they're dressed up as Grouch. I mean, how can there
Um,
not be?
that's but anyway, and basically it's just a bunch of like looking through windows and talking back at each other and telling little stories that ramble on. And yeah, in Krapp's last tape, we'll talk about that more later. But it's just a man listening to recordings from his earlier life, um, or a recording. So anyway, getting back to Endgame though.
And
Yeah,
there's four characters: Nell, Ham, Nag, and the other guy, Clov.
Claw.
Nell, Ham, and Nag and Nell are the parents of Ham, and Clov is sort of this slavishly attached to Ham character, who declares independence to a certain degree by the end.
Well, but it's a false declaration because, it's circular, the play. We end in the same place we began, and after all the declaration of I'm leaving, he's still standing there. He hasn't lost. And like where the name of the play is Ham saying like, again we played Endgame and lost and give up losing. Um,
Yeah,
which is just what a wonderful vision of despair right there. Um,
yeah.
yeah, no, it just says like a little like for me like one like little existential bit that like hit me. They're like, okay, that's good.
Mhm.
Is actually it's the first thing that's said in the play by Clav saying, "Finished. It's finished. Nearly finished. It must nearly be finished." Grain upon grain, one by one, and one day suddenly there's a heap, a little heap, the impossible heap. Now that's referring, and I know this because like Beckett like made notes of this in his philosophy books that he read,
Mhm.
to like the paradox that the Greeks talked about of like, okay, if you have a single pellet of sand, like that does not make a heap, and you add one more, it's still not a heap. And like but at some point it becomes a heap. It becomes this other thing that we would think of it as. I forget the name of that paradox, but it's something that he point that resonated with Beckett. And that same thing is repeated at the end of the play except instead of talking about in terms of just bits of sand, it's your life. You know, you expect all these moments after moments to add up to something, to mean
Right.
something. But no, all you have is just more grains of sand.
I'm
It
reminded of a study that is in Kahneman's book Thinking Fast and Slow. And I don't remember the citation, but basically it involved a room, and the subject walks into the room. Some of the subjects would find a quarter on the ground, and some wouldn't find a quarter on the ground. Those who found a quarter on the ground said that their entire life was better.
on
Their entire
average, as in like
every like their life as a whole had gone better than the people who hadn't found a quarter.
as in basically they're unduly um so basically they're asked after
Yeah.
that
They're asked, they
how do
find
you
a
feel
quarter.
about your life?
How has your life been up to this point?
Yeah.
And the
And
people who found a quarter rated their whole life as having been better. And it might even been I forget what, it might even been a penny, or some nonsense. But
yeah, no, that's
that
good.
it's such a Beckett study, right? Because that's oh my God, I have to summarize all of this, and yet I have all these grains of sand.
Yeah, and basically it's like, well, no, like a lot of people are in the situation where they're very highly prejudiced by this little thing, by this one little sand that came after it. Um um
Yeah.
like
Well, I mean, I
that's
think that's the repetition enjoyment in here, is that there's a sense that characters can't break free, but they enjoy a moment in the cycle.
I don't think they're enjoying they're not enjoying anything here,
Right.
buddy.
Enjoying is the wrong word. But they live for a moment in the cycle. How about that?
Yeah, I mean it's what we have here. I mean, again, another one of these lines that just really hit me
Yeah.
was Ham talking about Claw is potentially leaving, and he says, you know, do I force him to spend my last million moments with me? And it's just like thinking of it as like the rest of your life as just a million moments, just these single instants, one after another, like cards in a deck. It just has this utter futility and ugliness. And like here we are, like the perspective on the play is like, yeah, all this tedious trash that happens throughout the play, all these bits and scraps of memories and little arguments and pettiness. It's like here's in a sense just, oh yeah, we watched like 1,000 of those moments. You know, like that's all we have here. We have this one little bit of this cycle, just a grain of it.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I mean, I think that and also instead of it becoming like um sublime in a positive sense, you could almost say it's sublime in a negative sense. You're getting this whole view of everything, and it somehow doesn't produce a full paralysis, like they keep moving the tables around, but it produces a certain extremity of viewpoint in us that is, when viewing the play, it's an extreme viewpoint of capturing the whole at every moment in the play, whereas you're not always concerned at any moment with the narrative and then Beckett flips that whole thing and puts the view of the whole as the thing that we're interrogating at every moment, which makes it actually kind of exhausting to read in a certain sense, right? Because you're always referred to the whole instead of just at this moment I slayed the dragon, yay, but then I fell into a depression, oh no, but then I found God or whatever. I don't know. It doesn't matter. It's not a linear series.
there's no force moving us forward.
No.
We're just sort of drifting along from one thing to another. Each of those things are we might want to say entangled with other ones, like the sort of stories they tell and how they get interrupted and referred to. It's like, but it's still just It's just rags. It's rags. But one thing is that you're saying like, yeah, they're still moving around, but it's very much a stagnant motion. You know, it's
A
this sort of
mobile.
what?
It's like a Calder mobile. Things are moving in different isometric things, but the Calder mobile is not going to get up and walk out of the museum. It's no matter what the
Yeah,
configuration, it's not
I
going to
think that's a
rotate.
good I think that's a good analogy. One thing is that those are too elegant, and
Like
seem to
Calder's the worst artist to reference. Sorry, it's
yeah.
like
No, it's good. It's good. Like in a sense, like yeah, like this is a motionless motion. It's not that they're rotating. It's that they're sputtering. Um, and I'm thinking of okay, like for instance, there's just so much time spent on like okay, like he moves the chair around at a certain point. He's moving it back cloth, and Ham is like, "No, I want to get back to where it was." And thinks he's blind. He doesn't know where he was. Um,
yeah,
and
it's like
feel
the
it.
perennial, yeah, like old lady watching TV. She's asleep, and then sorry, she's asleep, and then you turn off the TV, and she goes, "Hey, I was watching that," you know.
Yeah, yeah, actually, very much like that, and like a little bit to the left, and then it's just, oh, but a little bit back to the right, and a little bit forward, no, a little bit back. It's just like all of that was nothing, and
Yeah,
just
and it's not even like you could make an argument that Ham's a control freak. I mean, he is, but who cares, right? Like he's sort of like his story is beautiful and controlling and scary, but this play is not about Ham like being an abusive person. That's
oh,
way too
by,
much sense making for what we're doing here,
by
you
the way,
know?
I just have to mention here, just as an aside, like just these names just feel like scraps, like Ham, Clove, Nag, Nell. Like these aren't these are not names; these are name fragments.
Yeah, the next one would be like flip and then dip and then
Yeah,
rip,
like
you
Jesus
know?
Christ, it's just but no, but it's also like when there's even like we enter upon the play and like Clav is like he's taking a ladder to look out of a window and then he moves the ladder over to the other the window just like 10 feet to the right to look through that one.
Yeah.
It's like it's the same view, and he does this, and like there's the whole business of like, oh, you should look out this with a telescope. So he goes to get a telescope, but he's forgotten the ladder. So he goes back and he gets the ladder, but he's forgotten the telescope. It's just this
Yeah.
sense of futility. This like you
And yet
can't
I think
accomplish anything.
this is why we, at least my reading was in agreement with the aspect of tragic comic and not purely tragic, is because like it's a weird reaction. You move the chair over to the right, and I laughed, or you move the ladder over to the right, and I laughed because it's the same view, but the laughter is sort of haunted. It's not
Yeah,
like
it's
laughter of like a joke where something's going to happen. It's a joke that is very specific.
yeah, as in this is similar to Chekhov's plays in that he most of them are comedies. Like he says that they're comedies, but like when the first Seagull was first being produced, the cast said this is not a comedy, this is a tragedy. Um, they disagreed with him on this point, and then finally when it started to be done well, like by Stanis Levinsky, I think. Um, the basically the way to play it is yeah it is funny, it is humorous, it's the kind of humor that you have, it's the kind of jokes that you make when otherwise you would cry. It's just sort of like remarking on the futility of your life, the absurdity of it, but this was
Yeah,
your life.
it's
um
kind of similar. It reminds me like Anna and I were going out west one year in undergrad, and it was like we made it work, but the car was like trying to tell us not to go. So like the car was infested with um beetles, which I just already is really great.
what?
I know they're called carpet beetles, and they're impossible to remove once they get in your house. And so every morning we'd wake up on the trip and remove the carpet beetles. And then the window broke the morning of the trip. And so we had to go to the mechanic and then drive out. And it was like there was this sense where if we were counting, the death by 1,000 cuts on the car, right? And at a certain point, we were going to not go, and the window was that point, and we went anyway. But there was this sense of futility, and we survived the trip. Everything was fine. But there is a sense of like, oh, well, I can't do that because of this other thing, and I can't do that other thing because of the first thing, and all of that is prevented by a third thing.
I actually want to say it's that's close to Beckett's kind of futility. But in a sense, like in there, it's like okay, you have in a sense clear obstacles like opposing you, and you have a clear end. And like for me, like this is and for me in my mind, I remember I was listening to one of Beckett's novels. I think it was Malloy. And I came back into the house, and my father said, and I go into the garage, and I go into the living room, and my father says to me, Ray, could you go close the garage door? Now I'm literally like just like 12, 15 feet away from the button to close the garage door. I can see it basically. And
Yeah,
but I turn to look at it, and because I've been listening to Beckett, I just have this feeling of no, that's going to be way too complicated, involved the journey for me. I'm going to forget
yeah,
what I'm doing and like go all around the neighborhood again, and not even
yeah.
remember to like press the garage door button. That's how little control of my faculties, and I just like the sense I have is like this is just what like I almost just feel like this is what it's like when you're like, okay, you get up in the morning and you mean to go brush your teeth, but you forgot that you need to send this email to somebody else. But while you're opening up that, you go to Facebook and you remember you have to reply to your girlfriend, so you start doing that, and then you're hungry, so you go down to get some food. But then, as in, it's like things are just, it's
Piling on without any subtractions.
yeah, and it's like it's all like you don't have any control of your mental faculties. I almost imagine this is like what this is horrifying, but like an advanced state of dementia has to be something like, or maybe not advanced, but like a
Oh,
middle term.
yeah, yeah, because if it was advanced, you wouldn't be have enough agency to be aware of the repetition.
Yeah, yeah, which
Whereas,
is
or the repetition's a weird word. I mean more like you're on a racetrack, and in order to live your life, you're assuming the racetrack just as a straight line. And Beckett shows you that, yeah, we have to live on that straight line, but in reality, it's coming back around again. There are certain loops that we assume are not looped.
yeah.
That
There's no such thing as progression in Beckett's
no.
world. It's I mean you have loops of decay. Um,
Yeah, it's like it loops, but then fainter and fades, and it keeps looping but fades into the background. Like, well, we'll get to it with that's Krapp's last tape does it perfectly. I
yeah, I
mean,
mean that thing's
the
magnificent.
splendor. I mean, that was like one of the better plays I've ever read.
Yeah, it was. Well, it's yeah. We'll get to that in a minute,
Yeah.
or eventually. But
No, I can see why, first of all, when we're talking about Endgame, I can see why this is such an important play too. Because some of the plays we've read are less famous or were famous at the time but have fallen out of favor. Um, I think that Endgame is obviously great, but for the just day-to-day entertainment, it also is funny at the line-to-line level.
mhm.
So it's not like one of these highfalutin modernist plays where it's like you're watching and you're like, does anyone know what we're doing here? Which you could ask. You could ask for this, but you wouldn't because you'd be laughing at the latest joke that happened while not knowing what we're doing here.
Yeah, one of the jokes was just
Mhm.
like Ham is calling for Nag, and Clav is behind him, like sort of whispering to Nag, like asking him, and he just asks like, "Go and see did he hear?" And he calls him twice. And go and see did he hear me? Clav, yes. Ham, both times? Clav stoops to listen. Clav, once only. Ham, the first time or the second? Like, how would you tell? Jesus Christ,
Like, what is
how?
that's a great that's such a
Like, why would you care? It's just such an it's the dumbest question in the world, but it's so great. It's so
And
great.
one thing that also happened in this play is there's another character which is a fake dog or a toy dog
Yeah.
described as really funny. And by the end, I forgot it was a toy dog, and then they reminded me, well, it's not even real. And I went, oh yeah, it's not real. I forgot. I forgot it wasn't real. um, yeah, it's there's all these little things, and I think that adds to its entertainment value, like why this is a play that is running always somewhere in the world. Someone's always staging this play, and I think it's because it's first of all infinitely interpretable at the line level what we're doing, but mainly it mixes that deep broader messages with punchy constant back and forth that's
Yeah,
just I
and
mean, and just sheer entertainment value, right? Like the code switching in the language from Clov and Ham, where it's like a raconteur, like like a narrator. And it's like I had so much fun doing that scene last night to myself where they're talking, and I just was reading it out loud, and I'm sure I was like signifying craziness to Anna, but it was very fun. It's like, whoa, this is, and I have no idea what's going on. It's just pure language switches at all points.
well, yeah, well, that one, it's just the way he's like, he's telling the story, and he's constantly sort of saying, God, I'm doing such a great job at this, in the normal voice, and it's like that the fact that he's like interrupting his own narration in this futile and distracting fashion it's great.
It's great. It's like ADD but in reverse, where instead of going on tangents, he's like another subjectivity congratulating himself. It's it's perfect. And he's congratulating himself, but he's also telling a really horrifying story. you
Yeah,
know, it's funny in how horrifying it is, and it's how Clov got here. And it's like, wow, that's a nice
presumably.
presumably. Well, I mean, of everything in this
There's
is
an ambiguity
presumably.
there, and but yeah,
Yeah.
that's the implication. One thing I want to say about it is, Samuel Beckett said about his plays that I don't know anything more about them than what's written on the page. Um,
Thank you. That's better than fucking J.K. Rowling or Faulkner, who are they're adding the Faulkner adds the genealogy, and we've debated that a couple times, but I like it at least that Beckett's like, nope, I'm not doing that. It's gonna be in the text. We're gonna do it. Obviously, there's a paradox that when he said that was outside of the text, but
well,
whatever.
it's yeah, no, it's
But
common,
it helps
you know,
me,
yeah,
yeah,
but
because it gives us permission to interpret without having to look somewhere.
yeah, it's I mean, to me, when I hear that, I don't know the exact. I mean, this is my way of reading that. Is it's
Mhm.
like there's all these ambiguities in his work, and you might be tempted to like figure out like, okay, what's really happening here? Like, what actually
Mhm.
happened? And the answer, nothing happened, or like
Yeah, nothing. Yeah.
it's in like, or something did happen, but what does it matter anymore? That's the past. It's dead. It was an illusion. Like it's you
Hmm.
can't refer to it. You're living in this sort of, all you get is what the narrator tells you. All you get is what
Right.
these characters repeat.
I also on a I think you're right. I would also add I think there's a separate register in which it works, which is that on a most basic level, a layperson often asks the author, "What does your work mean?" And this is exacerbated by modernism and experimentalism, and the author is sometimes positioned as like having to know the answer. Like, if you don't know, then what am I doing here? For example, like in a 12-tone music, it's always, why did you do that to me? And the author is presumed to like be the subject supposed to know, basically. And it kind of reminds me of that quote from Zizek, which is that the secrets of the ancient Egyptians were the secrets for the ancient Egyptians themselves.
Mhm.
So the secrets of Beckett are the secrets are secret to Beckett as well.
Yes, yes, that
And
that
I think that's exactly true, because otherwise it wouldn't be so fun to read and write. If you actually knew the answer, then fuck you, in a certain sense, to me, at least.
yeah, and it's yeah, it's just this ambiguous space that he creates, this gray toned vacuity, um which is
Yeah.
uh
And any object that shows up, let's say we added into Endgame, it is at this point that the giant paper mache head arrives. You know that the first word from Ham would be something like, "Oh, not again." Right? Because everything is always happening, right?
or like you have a big episode, going through it, and then at the very end, like as if this were the first time, and then he says, well, I was that wasn't as pleasant as last time, or something like that. Like there was an illusion that this is the virgin time, this is
There
the
is.
first time, but like no, no, it's just like, like we have this big episode of Clav leaving, but like presumably, like how many times has that gone on?
Yeah. And I think that plays with our just human basic perception. Like when a striking phenomena happens, I'm just gonna make the claim that as a reader, my inclination is that this is not only the first time for me, it's the first time for everyone.
Yeah,
Unless some few tells me otherwise, if a thing happens, that's I'm gonna code as non-normal. I would assume it's the first time. It's just kind of a
no,
basic
I
human
have
assessment
no,
thing, right?
just one of these stories, like it
Yeah, yeah,
just to go into a different theme.
yeah,
Like, you're talking about just like repetitivity, um, and but like one thing is just his attitude towards the world. Nag is telling a story about one time there was an Englishman needing a pair of striped trousers in a hurry for New Year's festivities. Goes to his tailor to take his measurements. That's a lot. Come back in 4 days. I'll have it ready. Good. 4 days later. So sorry. Come back in a week. I've made a mess of the seat. And this goes back and forth like multiple times, more and more. I know, 10 days and a month and like 2 months, whatever it is. And at one point, the man then says, "God, God damn you to hell, sir. No, it's indecent. There are limits. In 6 days, do you hear me? 6 days God made the world. Yes, sir. No less, sir, the world. And you are not bloody well capable of making a pair of trousers in 3 months?" Taylor's voice scandalized. "But my dear sir," uh, making a gesture disgustedly, "at the world. And look," loving gesture, "at my trousers." As in,
it's a pile of
no
shit.
wonder the world is such trash.
It
God
was,
only worked on it for 6 days. Well,
yeah,
my
that was.
trousers, they are actually good. Presumably you'll never see them. Um, but it's just that that just sense, like, yeah, the world is this haphazard, shoddy object. Um, no wonder it's no
Yeah.
good.
No wonder it took so long. And there's also an analogy there, like, right, like the world stays the same and the trousers are the plays themselves, right? There's a
Yeah,
sense that
well, yeah. It's, well, one thing, like I feel like it's part of it is in that context. I feel like the trousers will never be finished. Like it is one of these, like Xenu paradoxes where, um, you
you
know,
know,
where it's like, like every
as I think a Scientology person.
yeah, yeah, but
Right.
it's like, to get across half the room, you first have to cross the first half of the first quarter of the room. To get across the first quarter, you have to go across the first eighth, and you never get there. You never get there to the end of the room. And it's like the
I
way it's
mean,
like it takes longer and longer to like finish these trousers. Like no, no, this is a futile action to make something actually good. You're always going to make a balls of it, to put it in Beckett's words.
no, I think you're right. I also think that, this is whenever I get to know an author or any artist, we talk about this at some point, which is basically like, are you the type of artist that feels like you finish things or not? Like, is anything ever finished? And like Boulez famously said something along the lines of like, I've never finished a piece of music. And he has
Yeah,
things
like
published,
yeah, there's
right?
that. I don't know who said it, but the quote that art is never finished; it's just abandoned.
Yeah, which is similar in a lot of ways to what people say about different philosophical doctrines. It's like, yeah, you can go be a Platonist, but we abandoned blank. But that's not really the point. The point is the poet Diane Wachowski um said the same thing when I was over at her table for dinner one time. And it's like, like she just like, I just never feel like it's anything's finished. And she kind of made it more universal. Like she felt that all artists don't really feel like they can fully finish a work. And I feel that I can finish a work, but that the meta form isn't finished, if that makes sense. Like I don't have any problem finishing a piece in the same sense that when Beckett finishes a play, it doesn't seem like that's the type of thing that he's on about. It's like this play is done, but that's that play being done is the halfway. Then the next play is the 2/3, and then the 1/6, and then the 1/12. It just seems like Beckett has that
Yeah,
in there.
I wonder. I feel like some people get to the point of being finished with things. Um, I, 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 I mean, to me, I think something like Madame Bovary is like Flaubert had to have felt like it was finished. Like, that's great,
Yeah.
you got it, you nailed it. Or the same thing with like War and Peace. It's like Tolstoy must have felt like, well, I did a good job. Now moving on. I mean,
Or single authors like Harper Lee with To Kill a Mockingbird, or the Gone with the Wind. Like, well, those are the people's only books. They're. I'm wondering if it's like, yeah, I said the thing, and now I'm gonna go drink tea. Like, leave me alone. I don't know. Like,
like you put it out there, you expressed what you wanted to, and but yeah,
received that
but
too.
just in general, this is just Beckett's view of just you know I feel like life, like this like double vision of like you do anything and you'll never do a good job of it, and if you do any and the reason why the world is so shoddy is because, well, you God couldn't have done a good job at this. I feel I feel like
Yeah.
God would never have made the world. Could have never have done it. He would have kept on puttering about from Beckett's perspective.
I
um,
mean, also, I would say to add a little bit of artistic ego into the mix. I think I think that encapsulates at least a certain artistic view of the world that emerges in the 20th century, which is like deeply in contrast with this view of nature as being harmonious with God, where in the 20th century, Beckett's like, my play is better than your nature. Like, there's a sense I get that,
well,
like,
I know
that,
I don't quite. I know. I feel like for Beckett, it's like no, he is just representing like the raggedness, the incompletion, the brokenness, the futility of life. Like,
but isn't there a sense that if he represents it, he does it in a way that's perfect?
yeah, I would
It
say it's
stands
perfect, but
outside of that
I don't know if he would have
muddle.
said that. As in, like like
Uh,
there was an interview that or not of someone who knew Beckett, and I think was an actor in one of his plays or something. I can't remember. But they're talking and like he brings up like the actor was just saying like, oh, I read this article about someone criticizing existentialism, saying like, well, existentialism says life's meaningless. Well, if that's the case, shouldn't the existential philosophy itself be meaningless? Like, how can it mean anything and talk about anything in that case? And he says like, well, no, that doesn't have to be the case. That's what the actor thinks. And like Beckett's view is like, well, no, actually, I agree. Like this idea of having a coherent philosophy like existentialism, that is itself incoherent. Like if life is meaningless, there's no philosophy that could describe it. Like it is just this sort of shambling wreck. um
which
you know,
is, if I read like more, why he was influenced by
oh, he was
more,
deeply influenced, and you see it in his
but
work.
Schopenhauer would be, he was more the idea of the more simple just idea of this life as this striving willpower that has no point, um shines through.
Huh. I don't know. You're saying he was influenced by Schopenhauer?
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
he was influenced by
All right,
Schopenhauer.
I'm surprised. But yeah. But anyway, that's the attitude of the mature Beckett. Of just like,
Yeah.
yeah, like, like I don't have a philosophy because this life is just that meaningless. Um,
Hmm.
I don't have a way of reflecting back life's meaninglessness. I just have these plays and novels that I sort of scrap together.
A way of partaking in it and not standing above, maybe.
Yeah. Um, so I at least now I think this is magnificent. These things he creates. But I
I
don't.
wonder if we would say more that the art winds up standing but a little above the shamble of the content.
Yeah, I imagine even from his perspective, he'd have a certain feeling of that, of at least it's like a refined. It's beautiful trash. Um,
Yeah, I mean it has to, right? Because if you don't, for example, if you don't know that humans have this sort of baptismal fallacy where we're always, oh, this thing happened, it's new, therefore it's actually new. If he wasn't able to glean that, he could never form this whole process of making fun of us for having that trait we have, right? That
yeah,
like
yeah.
it's
Now,
very refined.
I'm not. I guess one thing I should say is I don't agree with Beckett's attitude. I don't think that life is like Endgame. I think certain aspects of life are a lot like Endgame. Like I know that mental place of like not achieving anything, of always sort of fumbling. Um, but I don't. So like I don't agree with Beckett
I
on
don't
the
think it's a
point.
closed repetitive circuit.
Yeah, I don't. I don't think life is trash. Uh, my vision of human beings are not a blind man with this slave-like servant and your parents in the fucking garbage. I don't have that vision of life. Um,
I
um,
think I think that like there's a lot of ways that he could have gilded the lily that would have ruined it. It's implied that it could be post-apocalyptic or purely in the mind or whatever. There's a lot of things it's
oh
implying
yeah, that was fun. That was fun. Like the different like that.
interpretations.
Well,
But
yeah, I just as in like I forget who was saying what, but it was something like Claw was looking out the window and just saying like, God, there's nothing, there's no one out there, it's a wasteland or something, and like
yeah,
I'm saying, I once met an insane man, an artist who just thought the world was a wasteland, and I take him to a window and show him like all the people in cities and like he'd come away from the window still thinking it was a wasteland. I thought I only met one man like that before. Um, and it's like referring to Clove. But it's like, well, is he? Like,
yeah. But like critically, wouldn't it ruin the whole play if it was pinned down?
yeah, yeah, it would.
Like
Like,
totally, if it was like a sci-fi person was like, I'm gonna do a truly post-apocalyptic endgame, it's like, well, then you're not doing it. You've ruined the whole fun of this free play of
yeah, and
magical space.
yeah,
You know?
you want it to be this. Well, the thing is, it doesn't matter if it were, as in you're inside the wasteland of the mind.
Yeah,
You're already locked in this meaningless cycle. It doesn't and alone. It doesn't matter if there are actual people out there. It doesn't matter if it's a happy, thriving society. It's still a wasteland.
yeah. Okay, that's it's weird. There's so many little things, but I think I'm good. I really enjoyed it. I want to talk a lot about Krapp's last tape because even though the more critically acclaimed one, I mean, these are both
Okay,
super good.
actually, I just have
Oh
to
yeah, yeah, yeah. Go for it.
one
Go for it.
last little bit.
Oh yeah.
Just to like nail down the meaninglessness as a symbol here of
Yes.
of Ham is saying we're not beginning to mean something.
Yeah.
Uh, mean something. You and I mean something. Oh, that's a good one. Ham, I wonder. Imagine if a rational being came back to Earth. Wouldn't he be liable to get ideas into his head if he observed us long enough? Voice of rational being. Ah, good. Now I see what it is. Yes, now I understand what they're at. And without being so far as that, we ourselves, at certain moments, to think perhaps it won't all have been for nothing. It's just that like there's this like horrible terror, hysterical terror over maybe we mean something, maybe it adds up to something, maybe we have a heap and not just grains of sand.
And it's like it's kind of also implying like how terrifying it would be if it was a heap.
Yeah, like there's something, so I don't actually fully understand that terror, but it's so outrageously funny. Like they're scandalized by the idea of life meaning something. Like they're so content with the futility of it all. Okay, so that's my parting symbol of Endgame.
I
Um,
think it's a perfect one. Absolutely. And it's also just it's just funny because it works on 9 or 10 other levels, but we can just build the lily and leave it at the one, you know.
yeah.
All right.
Okay, so Krapp.
So Krapp's tape, I'll do the summary on this one. Krapp's tape, last tape is um about as a solo play in one act written for actually an actor in mind. I watched his rendition, it was sublime. That you sent me.
Yeah,
Uh and it's about a man basically just watching tapes of his life. And
listening.
sorry, not watching, listening to different tapes of his life. And he's going through different years, but the main action, the actual things he does, first of all, he does not speak very much. The actual live man on stage. When he does, it's usually sounds. And which is very important, I think, that the you know that but at his iteration of taping, there's not many words. And his actions amount to eating a banana, having an addiction to eating a banana, which really seems displaced from the alcohol he's walking off stage to drink, which I thought was beautiful. It's like only one more banana, and I'm like, are we talking about a banana, or have we just displaced the alcohol
No,
you're
no,
drinking?
it's a it's
um,
like that's the thing about Beckett.
Absolutely perfect, though, whatever it is,
Yeah,
and that's about it. That's all that we do is we talk about his life and
yeah,
his
and
view.
he just listens to like recordings of himself. I mean, I in my mind, like this is a man who's like in his late 60s, 70s,
Yeah.
listening to a recording when he was 39, making his own recording and listening a little more back to it again. And it's just one thing. I just have to read the description of Krapp for 1 second here. Of just because like I it's just such a wonderful thing. Um, let's see. Let's see. Actually, no, it's not worth it. But just the way it's like, white face, purple nose, disordered gray hair, unshaven, very nearsighted, but unspectacled. Like that what? Hard of
Yeah.
hearing, cracked voice, distinctive intonation, laborious walk. Like this is just a. I mean, it's a weirish old man, which I had to look that word up. And I have to say, it's always worthwhile, like looking up Beckett's words. Like they're always just like they're always like a something worthwhile.
Oh yeah.
Just like it's a tasteless, insipid, sickly, withered, squeamish. Like that's great. That's great. Like weirish. I'm gonna use that now. Saying what a weirish old man. Um,
It's such a great job of giving you exactly who we need.
yeah, and it's like and
There's
just
not a
like
lot of ambiguity there as to who we're talking about.
and just being introduced to him like eating a banana and like just fumbling through those desks and like just like dropping the peel on the floor and tripping over it a little bit and
Also,
kicking
I
it
don't
off the stage like it's
I have this is deeply not important, but the actor, I forget who it.
uh Roger McGee. Let me look it up what I sent you. Yeah, Patrick McGee. Yeah.
Okay, so Patrick McGee, one of the first striking things is how he how he disrobes the banana at the beginning. He does it in this deeply like thought about way where he's like, look, if this man has an addiction to eating bananas, he has this down to a science. It's not going to be no one peel, two peel, three peel shit. He just sort of whumps the thing off, you know. And it was the first moment of the play where I was like, wow. And I was like, what? That's weird. But yeah, because if you eat 5 to 20 million bananas a day or whatever he's doing, you're not, you know how to do it.
Yeah, and by the way, dear audience, I know it's like we're talking about bananas. It's the reason why it's so worthwhile is just to convey the sense of the characters, like just absurd, broken, and like this is his life is eating fucking bananas, like it's reasonable.
Yeah.
Like this is just like a I mean I don't know, it's like something adjacent to being a hoarder where you're just like almost like barely human at that stage. Um,
It's like bare minimum of life. I mean, in William Burroughs, he always compares that stage of stuff to like insects. He always makes insect metaphors in like Naked Lunch and other novels.
yeah. So okay, but now getting into the heart of the drama.
Yeah.
Um, he actually after a long laborious process manages to like get his tapes out and his recorder going. And you're listening to what the man was like when he was 39,
Hmm.
reflecting on his life, and it's that's when you start to see the tragedy behind the humor. Uh,
Yes.
just I just the way first off, it's a strong, rather pompous voice it's described as, and it's like oh that's different than the person we're looking at now, especially when you hear the guy's voice. And he's basically just one thing is like it's a recollection. You're listening to him talk about his life at the same time. As in he's also like at 39, he's also heard recordings of himself. So like this other layer of distance. But okay. But the thing is like
Oh
he's
yeah.
saying like at 39, it's like, yeah, like, I think I'm at the peak of my faculties. I think I'm now at the crest of the wave or thereabouts.
Yes.
Um, and he's had this great sort of insight. You eventually learn. You don't hear what the insight is, but you get some sense of like he's finally had a vision for what he wants to write, how to convey his view of the world. Um, and the thing is, like at 39, he's talking about this, and like we're long past the crest here, man. We're ebbing. Um,
Oh, we are. Yeah. I have this. Can I read my favorite passage?
yeah, yeah. Go ahead, man.
Last illness of his father, flagging pursuit of happiness, unattainable laxation, sneers at what he calls his youth and thanks to God that it's over. False ring there.
Yeah, now that part right there is in reference to him listening to a recording at 30. Listen, at 39, the recording is listening to what he was like when he was, I don't know, 30, 25.
Or 38.
Yeah. and it's and it's just this sense of like he's also
Huh?
looking back and saying like he's like God, how I used to like not want he's laughing at the aspirations, the resolutions to drink less in particular. Like he's laughing at the idea he had in hopes.
Yeah. And
uh,
then and it ends with closing with or shadows of the opus magnum, closing with a yelp to Providence. What remains of all that misery? A girl in a shabby green coat on a railway station platform? No. It's just ooh.
yeah, just nothing.
Yeah, it's great.
And it's God, it's um
It
so
also kind of defeats it's like creates more desire, but it also defeats a certain aspect of desire because like, well, maybe in 5 years I'll have figured this out. And at every 5 year stage, he didn't figure it out.
yeah,
you know?
it's just that sense of well, there's no forward motion here. Like there's no progress. You don't look at your life and feel like you've had achievements. You look back on your life, and it's just a set of not even disappointments, just prolongations. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah, and there were other people, but they've long receded. The woman. I mean, there were people, there was sex, there was stuff. None of that's left. It's almost like the other people mark the point where he starts receding in a sense, or something like that. I don't know. Say it better.
yeah, I mean, there were people, but it's like and there's this heart wrenching tragedy that comes into it, which, I mean, you actually get, okay, um, Krapp listens to this first part, about, just what it was, of his self at 39, looking back on the past and all that. And he then makes his own. By the way, I have to mention, while he's listening to the tape, he stops it at a certain point, rewinds it, listens to it again, stops it again, because he forgot the word that his self at 39 knew, the duity. And he goes and laboriously gets it out of gets his dictionary out to figure it out. It's like, oh, here's decay. Here is loss. You're not as good.
Yeah.
Like, what a
Like,
wonderful little symbol of, yeah, he's not what he used to be. But the duity is, the state of being a widow. Um,
thanks.
yeah,
It's funny. Okay, so for the people watching, it's a funny thing because there's a whole paragraph of him literally telling us the definition because Krapp's reading from the dictionary the
yeah,
definition of the word, which is, I don't know. Okay, so this resonates on a couple levels. On one level, if I was 70 watching this, I don't think it would matter the life that I've had, even if I did a million things. I went to Kilimanjaro. I saved cancer. No, I'm sorry. I beat cancer. I saved cancer. But whatever it is, you do all these things. It would still resonate as a sense of like, and yet I forgot the word vacuity even if it's just in small spaces. There's still a loss and decay of vitality involved.
yeah, and it's great seeing like Krapp, like then like his comments after listening to, and like one of the things that like the tape does, he talks about like at the end of a relationship. Um, I think it was with Bianca. I think that's her name. And it's like this very kind of sad way of ending a relationship. Like you're going out on a boat, you see each other, and you just say like, "What's the good of keeping this up?" And the woman, without even opening her eyes, as she's lying back in the boat, says like, "Yeah, what is the point?" You know,
Oh,
and
yeah.
and and then like going over to her, well, you say to her, look at me, and she just barely opens her eyes because of the glare, and then you hover over her, in her shadow, in order to make her see you, in order so she can open her eyes completely. And it's just like, that's just God, that moment of like heartbroken desolation.
Yeah, I mean, and it's like has like resonances with the sexual act in a nice way, and yet it's more broken with the waves, and it's repeated a bunch. I lay down across her with my face in her breasts and my hand on her. We lay there without moving, but under us all moved and moved us gently up and down from side to side. And it's like, it's great. That's just, it's just fantastic, right? It's
And
a
but
little
then the
thing.
first thing you hear after literally the tape stop is there, he gets his new tape into there, and he says,
Mhm.
"Just been listening to that stupid bastard I took myself for 30 years ago. Hard to believe I was ever as bad as that. Thank God that's all done with." And by the way, that voice, that's the voice that like Patrick McGee uses basically. It's a little better than that, but like that's your response to yourself. Um,
When you were open to other people and
yeah,
having
it's just
like it's like the only time in your life when you accepted the existence of other
yeah, it's
people.
you are just nothing now. You're not even human. You don't even remember what it, well actually well yeah, but and God,
But
and
kind of like a also you're right. There's two things about Beckett's word choice. One is obviously he chooses great words all the time, but he also chooses the correct word a lot of the time. Like that's just a sort of really specific word. So
Mm.
when that, up and down and from side to side, pause. Krapp switches off, broods, fumbles in his pockets, encounters the banana. And just the word encounters there is so beautiful, right?
No.
It's like almost like a fetishistic disavowal where he knows the banana's there, but he can pretend that he's encountering it for the first time, even though he kind of, he knows it's there, right?
Yeah,
He's
and
always aware of the bananas in this play.
and yeah,
Always
this is the kind of man who like puts a absent-mindedly puts a unpeeled banana in his pocket, like what is wrong? And like he's also but he is aware of crap that just how empty his existence is. And he starts like talking about where he is right now. Nothing to say, not a squeak. What's a year now? The sour cut and the iron stool. Which, by the way, just that like vulgarity as I've seen, like that's
Oh
just
yeah.
Beckett. Um, reveled in the word spool. Spool. Happiest moment of the past 500,000. 17 copies sold, of which 11 at trade price to free circulating libraries beyond the seas. Getting nuts. Like this is his life. Like he's the kind of guy. Like I just love that spool. Happiest moment of the past 500,000. And just enjoying this word is the best thing in the last 500,000 moments. However many I don't know years that counts as.
And
Um,
that also is that just that little idea of counting and that those million moments hooks right up with Endgame with the grains of sand to the heap.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
exactly. I mean, he uses that phrase of like, he wants, am I going to force Clav to spend my last million moments with me? It's like that's great. Just and by the way, this whole like scene that we're in here, just the sense of the futility of it again. It's just idle, this whole position there, and it's just so it's like, yeah, this is just sort of a thought by this like puttering old man eating bananas, like, oh, I'll listen to my old recordings. And then he goes and does that. It's like there's no reason in particular that it came up. It's just sort of a whim, this event. It's just this little and it's just this little like picture into him. But one thing is he does start to get a little bit more a Krapp does start to get a little bit, he realizes the futility of it, but he's also like starts to be a little more nostalgic. He says, Effie could have been happy with her up there on the Baltic and the pines and the dunes. Could I? And she? Pah! Fanny came in a couple of times. Bony old ghost of a whore. Couldn't do much, but I suppose better than a kick in the crutch. The last time wasn't so bad. How do you manage? She said at your age. I don't. I've been saving it up for all my life. As in, he's starting to have a little bit of like, oh, I would have been happy with this girl. And now he's just talking about this old whore that he sleeps with.
well, he also he can't love anything fully.
Well,
Right? Like anything, any person. Well, the first woman, sorry, when they broke up, it's pretty obvious when he was 39. But as a person now, he can't he can't look at his choices and go all in. He's always like, I did this thing because I was dumb. I did that because it was stupid. I liked her, but she was a whore. There's sort of that
no,
like,
no, I don't quite, and I'm not quite getting it there. It's not really an issue of all in. It's just like he has this meaningful relationship when he's younger and this heartbreaking moment, but it's because it's like, yeah, life is futile, it's empty, like what are we bothering about here? Let's stop. It's sort of just like we tried and there's nothing more to do here. And like this other thing is like, yeah, because he's a ratty old man, weirish, it's like that's the reason why he's like sleeping with this whore at 75 or whatever. Um,
so
and
you're saying he really only comes alive. I told her I'd been saving up for her all my life. For you,
that,
that's the
that's sort of a joke. Like that's just like, yeah, like I'm still rancid. I'm still randy. I still got it going. Like um
yeah,
that's the reason why
yeah,
it's
yeah,
going
I
to be like
agree.
a pleasant a funny little like repartee with this, I presume, a whore. I presume that's not that's he's using it technically and not merely derogatorily.
No, I
Um,
think he went to see a prostitute. Yeah.
yeah,
I mean, also, I guess it doesn't. I think what matters. I think you're right. Okay, but what I say is like I think what matters here is like a light switch slowly dimming to black. So he had this love and it was bright,
mhm.
and now Fanny is that kind of dim. It's the only other person, right? It's
Yeah,
dim. It's
it's
not bright. It's kind of
well,
fighting to stay alive, but
yeah,
it's like some other human
well, I
thing.
almost want to say it's more like this is there's nothing positive about being with the whore Fanny. It's just a sort of
Yeah,
uh,
because he says couldn't do much, but I suppose better than a kick in the crutch,
you
which
know,
is just again, I just it's just so Irishy. Better
yeah,
than a kick in the crutch,
yeah,
and it's
uh,
like old man Irish. It's just I'm sorry, it's just
yeah,
perfect.
it's
Yeah,
great. It's great. As in, it to me is like Crap is barely human at all any longer,
right.
but one thing we do get is and this is something you only get to see in the Patrick McGee's version is he turns on the tape again. Um and we hear that whole scene with him, at 39 recounting how he broke up with Bianca. And
And he repeats it again,
yeah,
just
but like
right.
you see Crap cry. Like
Yeah,
there's still like just enough memory of like being human, of like not being just this weirish old man. Um, and it's devastating. It's devastating. Like that, and the final lines of it, of like of a Crap at 39 talking is here I end this wheel, box 3, spool 5. Perhaps my best years are gone when there was a chance of happiness, but I wouldn't want them back. Now with the fire, not with the fire in me now. No, I wouldn't want them back. Crap motionless, staring before him. The tape runs on in silence. It's just like that's as great of like at 39, he's like, yeah, happiness. The last chance of happiness is gone, but at least I have this fire in me. This fire in me, which is like mean, something to keep going. This vision that I have.
yeah, and we're assuming something creative. We don't
Yeah, like we well actually,
writing.
and but it's like now Crap. But it's not just the last chance of happiness is gone. It's the fire's gone now too. Everything's been extinguished. He's just the last ember of a human being.
Yeah.
Um, whose greatest pleasure in the last 500,000 moments is spool. um,
Yeah, I think this did have a it was weird. Like some people were like I was reading some commentaries that were like, well, Beckett's plays are non-Aristotelian because it doesn't happen with redemption. And I was like, okay, yeah, but like my dudes, there is a extremely Aristotelian catharsis involved where at least my reading was like there is a carpe diem reaction in my brain, which is not to be this guy. I'm like way simpler than we want to talk about it, but like not to wind up being this guy.
yeah, like it
The
is.
way that means there's a cathartic reaction to
Yeah,
the play that's in the
yeah.
negative.
It's yeah. In terms of like structure, like yeah, this has nothing to do with Aristotle, but in terms of there is a clear and unambiguous sense of like here's a human tragedy. Here's a
Yeah,
person looking back at the ruin of their existence. You
I
know.
think like there's a certain part of me that like a lot of great artists when they get older become weird and lonely and haggard, even when they're famous. Like Coleridge was like I think an opium eater and just kind of died crazy. Um, you know, and I kind of like I like to think of him as being super successful in whatever his art form was. That makes it more tragic for me.
Yeah, well, I mean Beckett is. And one thing is, I do feel this is very, I don't know exactly if it's autobiographical, in a literal sense, but just the sense of this is, I imagine this is how he has to feel about things. As in, like, I think James Joyce's daughter fell in love with Beckett, and Beckett didn't pursue that because he basically didn't feel there was anything human left in him anymore. Um, which is which is great. Um, like that,
One of our
that's
like, you have to be at least on some level honest as an artist.
it's just like, yeah, okay,
Uh-huh.
that's quite the self-evaluation. And like, and this whole play was inspired, from what I understand, from some actor. I think it was Brian McGee, like
Was
reading
McGee
off.
hearing him reading Malloy.
Yeah, and like just like feeling like just that sense of distance, that sense of distance from his own work, I guess. Just the sense of looking back at, like this emptiness, this ruin.
Mhm.
Um, and but like one thing is, this is directly autobiographical in a sense, because it's actually almost quoting something that Beckett had written or said about his own work. I don't know how much of this is exactly right, but it's very close. Of just talking about a neat a event in his life. He says, Krapp, 39 says, spiritually, a year of profound gloom and indigence until that memorable night in March at the end of the jetty in the howling wind, never to be forgotten, when suddenly I saw the whole thing, the vision at last. This I fancy is what I have chiefly to record this evening, against the day when my work will be done, and perhaps no place left in my memory, warm or cold, for the miracle that, for the fire that set it alight. When I suddenly saw then was that the belief I had been going on all my life, namely, Krapp switches off impatiently, winds tape forward, switches on again. As in, great granite rocks, the foam flying up, the light of the lighthouse, the wind gauge spinning like a propeller. Clear to me at last, the dark I'd always struggled to keep under is in reality my most. Crap curses, switches off, winds tape forward, switches on again. Unshatterable association until my dissolution of storm and fire with the light of the understanding and the fire. Crap curses louder, switches off, winds tape forward, switches on again, and there's a whole different part of the tape. As
Yeah.
Crap is like explicitly sort of like trying to skip the revelation. And by the revelation, just so we're clear, is um that at least that the dark I have been always struggling to keep under is in reality my most, I think, something to the effect of my most powerful tool. Like that was one thing that the young Beckett realized, is he didn't want to be like Joyce, where every aspect of human experience is recaptured. He wanted to be, um, he wanted to create, instead of having everything, having nothing. Instead of having the reader be omniscient about the characters and all the little things flickering around in their minds, he wants the reader to be in this sort of wasteland, this desolation, this nothingness, this darkness that's always been in Beckett. Like this was an actual moment for Beckett to realize this. Um,
Interesting. Yeah. And
and
I can
he's
see
using
that.
that moment for Krapp.
Yeah.
So Krapp is very much Beckett. Krapp is very much Beckett.
Yeah.
Um,
But I think that I think that makes total sense. And also there was if I was reading that a lot of commentators are saying like the masterpiece already done quote,
yeah.
is sort of in reference to the fact that Beckett thought Endgame was his masterpiece.
Oh, did he? I didn't realize he thought Endgame was the masterpiece.
I think so.
Okay.
We can double check that, but I believe he thought that was his masterpiece.
Well, yeah, that's surprising. Is he has so many other works I would have picked first, but I mean, Endgame's great, just not the one I would have chosen. Um,
I think the one that resonates with me was Krapp's last tape.
Yeah,
I did too.
Crap
I
is
felt
just,
that was just so good.
yeah, crap is just so much more perfect. It's just so much. It's very short, you
Hmm.
know. It's just sort of a glimmer, but it's unforgettable.
And
Um,
it's deeply, deeply necessary. You know, it's very, in a sense, like it's the type of framework of a narration where, you know, I truly hadn't seen a story told that way. But it wasn't told that way just to tell it that way. It was told that way because that's a vital part of experience, in a sense. You know, it's a very necessary addition.
yeah, and it's just it. Yeah, and it just like I just to like repeat one thing I said. I have chiefly to record this evening against the day when my work will be done, and perhaps no place left in my memory, warm or cold, for that miracle that set fire that for that fire that set it alight. As in just the idea of like there's no place in my memory for that miracle. It's like that's now. That's now. You know, it's like we are that late. He's making this recording for him later, but him later is like just not even engaging. Which is just God.
Yeah, I also think that there's the sense that so old Krapp, this is totally debatable. I'm just on a whim here that Krapp's last tape, the title isn't in reference to the one when he was 39. You could read it that way, obviously, or whenever
No,
the
I
one,
think it's this one. I think it's this one.
but you
Uh,
could read it as the play is the tape, the last tape, because he's lost the willpower to record anymore.
yeah, well, I can't help but feel that this is that like this tape is Krapp makes a tape where and he's like this is last sort of recollection.
Mm-hmm.
I imagine him dying quickly thereafter. We don't get to see that death, but we do get to see like, yeah, a man realizing he has nothing. He has nothing left.
Yeah.
Um, um,
Like okay, it's like two sides of creativity, right? Like for Joyce, creativity is like a filling gesture where it's filling the world with all of these new materials and creations and thoughts and people and settings and storytelling. It's just like pages and pages, and you know, all Balzac is the same way. Here's 90 novels, you know, filling the world with new objects. And then the flip side of like, well, there's a reverse way of thinking of creativity too. You could either think of it as paring back or um I don't know. It's a harder way to think about creativity because the common view obviously is the first one that as an artist you're adding objects into the world
well,
that are new.
there's a well, like there's one line, when you're reading like Ulysses,
Mm-hmm.
it's basically like you're getting like all of these little social interactions and memories and sensory experiences and just this very rich texture of experience. It's an extraordinarily carefully wrought object. I mean, it's almost 800 pages about a single day. Um, and with Beckett, there's a line in The Unnameable where he just says like, "I say this thing in order just to contradict it later." Um, like and that's no, either immediately or later, either to contradict it immediately or later. It's like yes, he does that all the time. That's like what reading most of his books are like. Is he's the narrator says something and either now or later it will get contradicted, it will be obliterated, you'll have nothing.
Yeah.
You're left not with a sort of a very careful, immaculate picture of Stephen Dedalus or Harold Bloom. You're left with nothing.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I think that like yeah, no, I mean I think and I think like that might be where I'm just a different type of artist than Beckett. Like I a lot of the techniques and all the fun staging and the newness and the freshness is great. And I also I mean I love the deepness of the surface, I'll say it that way. Um But like I think just me as an artist, I mean I read under five heteronyms, so I'm already obviously on the side of addition. Just in my I don't think I have a choice in that matter. I don't think that's like a thing I consciously chose. It's just whereas that's why I think that's partially why I loved it so much is because it's a he's a different type of artist than I am in that way. Um, it was good.
Yeah, yeah, it's marvelous. It's a marvelous object. Just haunting. Um, just haunting.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So I think uh I think we're good then on Beckett. We'll
For now,
definitely.
obviously, we're going to return to him. I feel like in a year we're going to come back and do all these weird thingies at the end of his life. These all these weird theatrical miniatures that involved music.
Or tackling the trilogy.
Oh,
Um,
we got to do that first. Those experiments are not as meaty,
yeah,
so to
like
speak.
the trilogy is magnificent. Um, but
Sounds
yeah,
great.
yeah. So next week, what's the name of the work that we're doing?
Okay, so I think that she has. I think it's called like the Diary of Lady Sharashina. I have my book upstairs. It's always published as different names because it was just a diary.
Yeah,
It's just a
I got it.
journal.
I got it here. It's this
So
is
it's
the
published as
Penguin
like
Classics edition, and
yeah,
it's As I Crossed a Bridge of Dreams: Recollections of a Woman in 11th Century Japan.
yeah.
So
I actually think there's gonna be some um partially the translation makes it sound newer. We always need updates, and there's different ways of translating. But there is something very strange about this book I found, and that I felt like I was reading Charles Dickens and not that I was reading 12th century or 11th century Japan. And I,
yeah, yeah,
I
well,
was I was very delighted by that.
yeah,
So
yeah.
mhm.
So we'll see how it rolls. So anyway, it was great, Chris.
Thanks, Ray. Thanks for showing me Beckett.
Yeah, bye.
Bye bye.